Right, hello and welcome to the Heart of the Matter, where I'm very honoured to have Mark Devlin join me for the next maybe hour or so to have a chat about his new book, Musical Truth, Volume 3. Welcome, Mark. It's an honour to have you here.
Well, thanks, mate. Good to be with you. Cheers.
Yeah. What I wanted to do is obviously we know you first sort of talking more about the sorts of conspiracies and lots of other stuff to do with the music side of things and that, being a DJ. But what I wanted to really do this time is sort of touch more on sort of the sort of spiritual sort of side of things a lot more, so but the sort of things that I was sort of reading that really sort of pointed out to me was about the chakra. That was on sort of page 385, which I thought was quite an interesting topic that you mentioned there. So if you could just sort of maybe sort of give our viewers a bit more sort of an explanation into those parts in the books, that would be great for us.
Sure. Well, it always makes a change for me to get into spiritual and metaphysical matters and more uplifting kind of material, because I'm known for looking at the conspiratorial aspects of the music industry and how that fits into what's happening generally in the world. And obviously this material is pretty dark and devastating for the most part, and it can be a bit unsettling and distressing to wallow in it for too long. And unfortunately, it's become my full-time job to research and expose this stuff, and it does get to you after a while. And I find myself needing some kind of release from it and some kind of diversion from it from time to time. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk about some different things. And with each of my 3 books in the Musical Truth trilogy, readers will be aware that I always close out on an uplifting, optimistic note, because I don't want to leave people with the impression that these sick psychopathic freaks who are currently running organized society are completely in control and there's nothing we can do about it. That's not how I feel about the situation at all. I want to leave people inspired and empowered and motivated towards doing something themselves, changing themselves, and aligning themselves with truth and right action, and resisting the tyranny and the insanity that we see going on around us, and learning to access a higher vibration within themselves, which is ultimately the key to putting this control system down. It's an energetic, vibrational fight. And once we learn the tricks and the tactics and the methods that have been weaponized against us and can rise above those and operate at a higher level of consciousness, that's how the game changes. So in volumes 1 and 2, in the final chapters, I focused a lot on natural law, the workings of the universe, and how consequentialism works, what people would call karma, cause and effect, and right action, what constitutes rights, what constitutes freedom, what is truth, where does it come from. But in volume 3, I've gone for a slightly different ending, because this is the ending to the entire trilogy. And instead of focusing on rock music acts and songs that are pushing the control system agenda, and instead of continually exposing all these different music acts as being stooges of the system, I've focused on some rock songs from decades past that appear to have been imparting an uplifting spiritual message. So I've got a handful of songs that I analyze, and I have to preface this by saying a lot of the information that I've got in there has come from the researcher known as Charlie Freak, who's done a great deal of work on decoding the true meaning of rock songs. He gets into the allegories, the metaphors, the spiritual symbolism. So I just want to give credit where credit's due and say that much of this work is reiterating what Charlie Freak has put out there. And I've put my own slant on certain aspects of it as well. So we've got a bunch of singles. And I also analysed Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, the entire album, because being a concept album, there is a central message which is being conveyed throughout all the songs, I feel. And with the handful of songs that I'm analysing, I'm looking into this spiritual dynamic of the raising of the Chrism oil, as it's known, and its relationship to Kundalini energy, the raising of consciousness going through human physiology and in connection with brain chemistry. So I'll let you jump in there if you want, and then we can go further into some more of the detail.
Yeah, I mean, that really resonates with me because there's conversations we've had in the past. One of them being Santos Bonacci, who talks about raising the Chrism and stuff, and and obviously we should have shared about sort of alchemy and stuff like that. So it's all very fitting for the channel and the stuff that you want to share here. So yeah, thank you for sharing your insights into this. It's just really good to have you here to be able to share these insights. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah, Santos Bonacci has talked about this stuff. There's a guy called Bill Donahue who's done some great work into it as well, and many, many others. But I've also had personal interactions with people who say that they've undergone these experiences, the raising of Kundalini energy and the Chrism oil. It's not something that I've consciously experienced myself because I'm a work in progress. And I've got a lot of self-work to continue to do. I'm not someone that finds meditation easy. I'm not someone that has embraced these spiritual practices. I've researched them, but like I say, I recognize that there's a lot of work I've still got to do on myself. But many people who've contacted me have had these experiences. And the raising of the Chrism oil seems to be a process which takes place within adult humans roughly once every 28 days, once every lunar cycle, more or less. And it occurs over a sort of 2 or 3 day period. And it gives the opportunity for this secretion, this oil known as the Chrism, to travel down from the human brain all the way down the spinal column to the sacrum, where what's symbolized as a seed gets released as part of this process. And then the process moves back up the spine, the 33 vertebrae of the human spine. Very important number, particularly within Freemasonry. There's a lot of spiritual allegory and metaphor attached to that number. And then this oil travels back into the brain, and there's all kinds of magic which then occurs within the human skull. And it's a complicated process involving different parts of the brain. But this fluid ends up effectively illuminating the pineal gland. There are others like Santos and Charlie Freak who can explain the whole experience a lot better than I can. And I do go into it in the book. It's difficult for me to remember all the different parts of the brain and such, but there are many researchers who back up the fact that this is a very real thing. And so it culminates in the pineal gland being illuminated. It's said to glow with the color purple, which is a color associated with the crown chakra. And according to certain symbolism that's been attributed to it, you get an expression of what's known as purple rain, which is what Prince appears to have been talking about in his famous song. So Prince would appear to have been someone who was very clued in on esoteric and occult knowledge. But the whole process is very heavily connected to the human chakra system. So as the fluid travels up and down the spine, it travels through the different chakra points and has an effect there on each of those. So this process appears to have been understood and contemplated by a number of singer-songwriters who encoded it into some of their famous songs. So I go into some of these in the book, and I just quickly run through what the songs are. So besides the Pink Floyd album that I mentioned, you've got Simon and Garfunkel with their song The Sound of Silence, which appears to be all about meditation, which is connected to this process, going within to the still and silent place. So it starts off with the lyrics, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. It's good to see your face again." And I've written, he's speaking of the bliss of entering into a meditative state. And he goes on to reference his eyes being stabbed by the flash of a neon light, evoking the process of illuminating the pineal gland and the crown chakra. And then you've got Procol Harum, a salty dog, and it's got seafaring symbolism to describe the chrism oil process, the crucifixion, so-called symbolic, of the left brain ego, and the attaining of higher-minded Christ consciousness. So that's what's going on here. It's Christ consciousness. It's not Christ as a figure, as a dude named Jesus who walked around the Holy Land 2,000 years ago. What Christianity has done is it's personified the process of the raising of the chrism oil and the attaining of Christ consciousness. And it's expressed different ways in different religious traditions from around the world. But just to focus on Christianity, that's what it's taken. And the crucifixion of Jesus is also symbolic and allegorical, because the crucifixion is part of this process of when the fluid travels back up into the human brain, and it's said to be crucified at a particular point where it splits. So it's all symbolic, and so much of this appears in these songs. You got Roberta Flack, Killing Me Softly, which is all about the killing of the left brain ego. So right brain consciousness is associated with intuition, and it expresses itself in dreams and through empathy, compassion, creativity. These are said to be more feminine aspects of the human experience, whereas the left brain is more analytical, and that's where more business-minded consciousness, if you like, takes place, where logic and that way of looking at the world expresses itself. And that's said to be more masculine components, more male traits. So the crucifixion of the left brain ego is talking about getting away from so-called real world consciousness, 3D world consciousness, and attaining these higher levels of consciousness, which are expressed through the right brain. And they lead us back to our true nature, our connectedness to source, what many people would call God. And then we've got other songs such as Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. That's a song that's been endlessly analysed. It does contain what appear to be satanic messages subliminally encoded in the form of backmasking. But the interesting thing about that song is it contains the lyrics, yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. So you can gain different teachings, different knowledge from that song, according to the level of consciousness at which you're operating. So if you're a Satanist and a dark occultist, and you espouse those values, there are things in that song that are going to appeal to you in that way and make sense within that context. But if you're looking to get more higher-minded, positive intent from that song, then that's there as well. And the whole concept of Stairway to Heaven seems to me to be another symbolic rendering of this idea of the chrism oil traveling up the human spine. That is the stairway to heaven. And heaven is not a physical place, but it's a state of mind, a state of consciousness, which again involves us reconnecting to our divine source. That seems to me to be what that song was talking about. So there's a few others, but again, I'll let you leap in there if there's anything you want to say.
Yeah, it's a very similar. It is a very similar theme to what my guest that I have on, Ahmed, has been speaking about as well. So it's great. Yeah, it's great again to have you on and share your interpretation of it as well. So it's so it seems to be a very running common theme. And for me, I'm like you. I'm on that path. I'm a work in progress. And stuff, and I myself have personally not had a Kundalini experience. My friend has, and it has shared that with me. So I just find this stuff very, very intriguing. It always has fascinated me, the esoteric, alchemy. There's many great teachers out there, many people that are showing good wisdom out there, and great insights. But it's also great to have that imparted into that book that you've just written, the Musical Truth 3 volume. It's just fascinating. So, yeah, thank you.
No worries. So we got some other songs, Steely Dan, King of the World. And it talks about, so all I can say is I'm alive and I'm feeling fine. And I've written, I've survived the chaos of the left brain and now I'm ascending. And then you've got no marigolds in the promised land. There's a hole in the ground where they need to grow. And marigolds can be split to give us Mary, the archetypal mother, and an expression of the sacred feminine. This is all stuff that's come from Charlie Freak's analysis of these songs. And then you've got, what else? The Allman Brothers' Melissa, which seems to be about a girl named Melissa, but Melissa actually comes from the Greek word for honey. And this is another symbolic rendering of this chrism oil, this sacred excretion, which has such power if it's embraced. And that's what that song is all about. So with each of these, there seems to be an esoteric and an exoteric meaning. And it's almost as if the singer-songwriters involved, the musicians or the record labels, those that control the industry, have put these songs out there and they've given people the option of whether they embrace the exoteric message, which is the message for the masses. So you think the Allman Brothers are singing about some girl that they love called Melissa. And if that's what you want to take away from it, if that's the level of consciousness at which you're operating, then you will. But if you're more higher minded and you're seeking truth and knowledge, and you know how to interpret the lyrics, the message, then you can get an entirely different meaning from that song. And that's the case with all of these. So there's also the band, the weight, take a load off Fanny, take a load for free, take a load off Fanny, and you put the load right on me. There's different exoteric meanings you could apply to that. But the spiritual meaning is that it's God, it's creation, saying, embrace right-minded consciousness, higher-minded consciousness, and it will take off the weight of what life in this physical 3D reality involves, the heaviness of it, the density of it. You can attain enlightenment. That's what's coming through that song. You've got Matthew's Southern Comfort, Woodstock, which is the Joni Mitchell song. There's some fairly clear spiritual messages in that. And there's also Prince and the Revolution, which I've added, talking about Prince, a song called The Ladder, from his album Around the World in the Day, where the ladder, again, symbolizes the human spine, the spinal column, up which, down which this sacred fluid travels. Also, the concept of Jacob's ladder, the story from the Bible, where Jacob has a dream and sees angels descending up and down this ladder to heaven, that's the same thing. It's a metaphor for this process. So the idea of attaining heaven, reaching heaven, being at one with Jesus or Christ, to use these religious overtones, is all talking about this process, which is within us all, or the potential to experience it is within us all. I'm fairly sure that you need to kind of prime yourself by doing a bit of meditation and learning how to go within and shut out all the noise and the chaos of the outside world and the sort of monkey brain that we all have, all this stuff, all this chatter that we need to lose if we're just going to still ourselves and center ourselves. That's losing the left brain ego. All that chatter, all that nonsense that goes on in our minds is the left brain talking to us. So if we can learn to symbolically kill that and instead embrace right-brained, right action, then we can undergo these spiritual experiences. So it's been allegorized in so many different ways. There are movies that have this in their plots. There have been TV shows. But importantly to this conversation, there have been so many of these songs. Not so many in recent years or decades, it has to be said. Most of the songs that I've analysed here are from the 1960s and 70s, a couple from the 80s. But there really don't seem to have been that many made since the 90s, because this is empowering truth. And clearly the powers that be, that currently are the organizers of our society, don't want people embracing those truths. So they've felt the need to express it in decades past, or at least give us the opportunity to take on this knowledge. But we're not getting too many opportunities now, because the way the popular music scene has gone is that it's completely toxic now. It's completely anti-God, anti-creation, anti-life. It's completely artificial. It's digital and electronic in nature. It's not organic in any way. It's pushing agendas. It's running symbolism and programming. And it's quite frankly a horrific shit show, and has been for a very long time. So we have to go a long way back, a long way into the past, to find songs with these kinds of meanings.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I feel about it all, really. Again, you know, someone that absolutely sort of makes me, when you talk about all this stuff as well, is Carl Jung. He's someone that obviously shares a lot of these sort of insights, you know, that you're talking about as well, you know, about symbolism and obviously the other things, shadow work as well, about ourselves and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just this, again, it's like a common theme that's running through, that's been there within us, in our sort of DNA, you know, but to sort of to be rediscovered again, you know. And they're going to do everything that they can to distract us, the enemies of life, as I call them. You know, they want to distract us from this, to not find out our true potential and truly who we are, and to go within, like you were saying, to go within and to find out who we are, you know, because everything's steered by the masses, or the mind control, as we know, and stuff like that, you know. So that's the journey that I'm on, you know. I'm like you know, and I am a work in progress, and it's just great to have people like you on here to share this sort of deeper stuff. So it's great insights again. Thank you.
Yeah, and what a lot of these songs are evoking is archetypes and even sort of ancestral memories. It seems to be a part of our primal states, which can be awoken when we hear these stories told to us again in allegory, in cryptic coded form. So this is why folk tales, fairy tales, nursery rhymes resonate so much with us, and also TV shows, movies, songs, because in so many cases the themes that are being conveyed are speaking to a part of our psyche or our spirituality, which kind of lies dormant, but can be resparked given the right cue, you know. So that's why so many of these works of popular culture resonate with us so much. And they seem to resonate more with some than others. I don't know if it's because many of us are old souls and we've had quite a few goes around on this crazy merry-go-round ride, or if some are just more naturally spiritually attuned than others. But it seems in every generation, there's a small number, a small percentage of that generation, which these works really speak to. And when we see a Hollywood movie or listen to some rock song, we're stripping away the layers and getting so much more from it than just what's there on the surface. So one final song to mention is from the 80s. Michael McDonald's Sweet Freedom, which I've included as well, which opens with the lyrics, "No more running down the wrong road, dancing to a different drum. Can't you see what's going on deep inside your heart?" So it's reinforcing how the way in which we live our lives remains a free will choice. You can get off the wrong road and onto the right one anytime you choose, anytime that the will is there. And then always searching for the real thing, living like it's far away. Just leave all the madness in yesterday. You're holding the key when you believe it. So leaving all the madness can be seen to speak to this monkey brain again that I was referencing, all this chatter and all this madness that goes on in our minds. And then living like it's far away when it's within you all the time. So that famous quote from the Bible, "The kingdom of God is within you," is speaking to the fact that if you embrace these spiritual processes, and particularly the raising of the Chrism oil, the illumination of the pineal gland, the portal to higher consciousness and to that connectedness back to source, then that seems to be the entire meaning of these human lives. People ask these questions all the time. Why are we here? What's the point of these lives? There's got to be a reason to it. It's not all random and meaningless. You know, we're spiritual beings having a human experience for a reason, because we're going to take back the knowledge and the experiences that we've accumulated through these lives back to source, where we came from, when these lives are done. And the more we can connect back to source while we're in these bodies and having these human lives, then the more rich an experience we're going to have. So that seems to be the central message here throughout. And I think this is the esoteric secret knowledge that's been hoarded for millennia by so many secret societies and mystery schools and religious institutions. When you strip away the teachings of different groups like the Freemasons and Rosicrucians and Jesuits and whoever else it may be, you find that the teachings, although the symbolism is different and the imagery is different and the stories used to convey it are different, the central message always seems to be the same. And what all of them seem to have been concerned with, even, you know, ancient Egyptians through much of their symbolism and beliefs, is reattaining that connectedness back to source, becoming more godlike, so to speak, while we're in human form. You know, don't wait till we're out of these bodies and the job is done. We can do it while we're plodding through these lives. And it would appear to make these lives much easier to bear if we can embrace these higher-minded aspects of ourselves. Again, not easy, and I'm not very good at it, but that seems to be the key to all these messages and all these teachings. And just thinking about these archetypes that get evoked and these primal aspects of ourselves, it even expressed itself through nursery rhymes. And the famous occultist Aleister Crowley actually put out a book deciphering a number of famous nursery rhymes. And one example that he gave was the familiar song Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock. And that is also talking about this same experience of the raising of the chrism oil and of traveling up the 33 vertebrae of the human spine. So the mouse running up the clock is symbolizing that process. The clock struck 1 is talking about the singularity of the Godhead, the divine. So in this expression of reality, we have duality everywhere, polarity. For every value, there's an opposing value. For up, there's down. For light, there's dark. For good, there's evil. But when you get back to divine source, there is only the one. Nothing is split. Nothing is separated. And Hickory Dickory Dock, amazingly, seems to be referring to this. And then, what's the other one? There's another nursery rhyme that Crowley spoke of. And I'm just trying to find the example of that. It's in the book anyway. And Santos Bonacci spoke about this when he was deciphering the workings of Crowley. So there's some amazing stuff there. It's expressed everywhere.
Wow. Yeah, it's great, Mark, because again, you know, for you to come and share this stuff, you know, because like we said earlier, you know, generally a lot of the time you get, you know, you're asked by a lot of people to talk more about the music side of things and that, but this is what this channel's been about. So yeah, I'm just glad to have you here and just to share your insights. You know, it's been amazing. And you know, hopefully we can have you on at some point again in the future, you know, because that'd be a lovely thing to do as well, because this is what this is about. You know, Heart of the Matter is about sharing the more esoteric alchemy. Carl Jung we talk a lot about as well. There's so many great thinkers out there, so many that have imparted so much stuff that we can go into and find that knowledge. And but one of the things that I'm learning, you know, through my walk is that it's great to read this knowledge and and to start to understand the knowledge, but then there's the difference between that and then having the actual experience, which I'm sort of on that road. I'm sort of gradually getting there, but it fascinates me, and I know that it's the DNA within me, the ancestors that are calling me back to my real true self, my true soul essence, if that makes sense. It does to me.
Yeah, good for you, brother. I mean, personally, I find it a lot easier to research conspiracy stuff and so-called real world stuff. I'm just more attuned to places, names, dates, events. I find it quite easy to accumulate that kind of information, to aggregate it all, bring it all together, present it in a meaningful way. I'm very attuned to that. I'm not so attuned to the consciousness stuff and the spiritual stuff. I find it fascinating. And I love to research it and listen to other speakers and authors about it. But I find it more difficult to embrace that kind of knowledge than the more real world hard conspiracy stuff. But again, like I said at the start of the show, when you wallow in all that heavy, dense conspiracy type information, it's not good for you long term. It's not good physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You do need to step away from that. And there's different ways you can do it. Sometimes I just feel the need to get away from the computer, get away from the desk, go for a walk, get some fresh air, go out in nature, or just do different things. Tidy in the house, decluttering is a great thing. It's good for the soul, I think. I've always equated a tidy room and a tidy house with a tidy mind. So I just need to get away from all this dense, heavy stuff from time to time, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same for me. I remember my journey a couple of years ago and stuff and all that. I think we did discuss about this a while back, and stuff on another podcast that we did. And for me, it was I remember sort of one of the first people that came across to me was sort of like Mark Passio. And sort of learning about natural law, on my journey, and stuff like that, but it seems like on this journey you seem to find that you find other avenues that you go down and other places that you end up at sort of along the way. And I seem to come more away from all the sort of more going down the rabbit holes and all the conspiracies and stuff like that, and ending more up into what we're talking about, the more spiritual stuff. I found that's where my heart was really lying for me. And I think that for me, it's all about psychology. I find a very intriguing thing for me to understand about psychology. That's why most probably like sort of Carl Jung and what he talks about with the shadow work and stuff like that. So that's a big area for me. That's my sort of area of interest. But but also, I will sit there and I'll listen to Santos, Bonacci, and I'll listen to Michael Tsaren's another one that I'll listen to. He's another great out there. So there's so many, but we're all on a journey. We're all at different places on that journey and stuff. But it's good to have this what I have now going, so that people can share these sort of insights and knowledge and stuff, because like you were saying, I feel that this knowledge has been so suppressed, and they've wanted to keep it hidden and away and keep people distracted so much by all this stuff out there in the world. And when I know myself that there's this true knowledge that's there for us if we want to discover it. And all it's really doing it's pointing us back to finding out who I am. It's all inside of me. It's all there. It's just that I need to discover it. So that's it really.
Yeah, they kind of have kept it hidden, and they haven't. So going back decades past, like I said, there were a lot of these rock songs in the 60s and 70s, and there have been movies and TV shows. Far fewer. Well, it's kind of been there in the movies all along. Most Hollywood movies contain esoteric messages. Most of them, I would say, are allegories for this life experience and different things that go on. There's hidden meanings below the main narrative of most of these movies now, but it's not so much in music anymore, in popular music. So back in the day, you were getting these messages, and one question which does spring to mind for me was, how is it that these young singer-songwriters, who in most cases were barely out of their teens, could have this kind of advanced knowledge? So it raises the question of whether they actually wrote these songs, or whether they were actually the performers, but the songs were written by other parties, or whether they did have this knowledge as a result of being clued in on it through association with various fraternities, secret societies, mystery schools, religious orders. I don't know the answer to that. Simon and Garfunkel, for example, The Sound of Silence, when that song was written, they were in their early 20s. So can they be expected to have that deep level of knowledge that song seems to be talking about? That's a question which will remain. But it seems the controllers, those that run these industries, these institutions, feel the need to place the truth out there through these popular culture vehicles. And this ties into a spiritual dynamic that I've addressed many times in my work, which is the need that they seem to feel to place the truth in plain sight, revelation of the method, to tell you what they're doing, what they plan to do, what they represent, what they're all about. So they do this in cryptic, coded form. It often expresses itself through the dynamic of predictive programming, where movies and TV shows and such will portray a real-world event or scenario which is known to be coming, which they plan to bring in, and they kind of prime the populace for it by putting visual depictions of it into their subconscious mind before it happens. So that when the event is presented through the mainstream media, the masses are much more likely to accept what they're being told about it because there's already a familiarity with it in their consciousness. That's one reason why they do it. I think another reason why they do it is to help empower and bring into physical manifestation that which they wish to achieve by getting large numbers of people to pay attention to it and apply their consciousness to it. But as always, it's a free will choice, which is our greatest gift. So with these songs, with these movies, you can take away from it that which is on the surface, or you can gain the more esoteric meaning of it. I mean, one movie, just by way of an example, would be Groundhog Day, starring Bill Murray. And that movie would appear to be a quirky, goofy kind of comedy on the surface about this guy that just keeps waking up to the same day and has to live it over and over and over again. And even when he tries to kill himself, he can't escape that loop. He still keeps waking up the next morning, same song on the radio, same detail, and he has to go through the same day. And he only escapes that cycle when he learns to be nicer, to embrace love and kindness, compassion. And then he gets himself out of it and moves on. So one interpretation of it is that goofy comedy element, but a deeper esoteric interpretation is that it's talking about the cycle of reincarnation.
Yeah.
This endless cycle of death and rebirth, where, according to many religious and spiritual traditions, our souls come in and experience these lives, and you're supposed to learn from your life experience. You're supposed to gain, evolve, grow in knowledge. You're supposed to develop compassion, kindness, love. And if you don't, then you're going to find yourself spat back out on the karmic wheel to have another go at it. And if you don't learn it in that life, then you come back again. And the only way you escape that cycle, according to these traditions, is by learning your lessons. And when you've learned them, you can then move on and evolve. And that seems to be what Groundhog Day is about. So if you strip away a few layers, that's the takeaway that you can gain from that movie. And that's just one example. Like I say, I feel most Hollywood big budget mainstream movies now are imparting some sort of meaningful spiritual message. You've just got to learn how to interpret it. And the more you look at these songs and these TV shows and these videos, the better you get at it. You get to learn the symbolism, the allegory. You get to grasp what the message is being communicated.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's just reconfirming some of the stuff that we've spoken about in past podcasts. About being stuck in a loop, and stuff like that. And the whole karmic thing and that. So yeah, I'm right. I mean, for me personally, it might not be for everyone, but for me, I see it like that personally. I'm seeing and understanding more that I'm here to learn from my life experience, and for whatever comes along in my experience is my teacher. And it's why I choose to take away from that. So, yeah, that's how I see it for myself personally. So, but thank you for sharing that, Mark. And again, it's really good because you have your own uniqueness and how you share, and one of the things that I didn't clearly see. I mean, I understood it in sort of being in movies, mythology, and things like that, and nursery rhymes, obviously, but not so much in music. But you really highlighted that more. So thank you for that. It was it's a great share. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers. It's just a shame you have to go back so far in the past to find this stuff.
Yeah.
Just straight toxic garbage out there now. It's almost as if they've stopped employing that dynamic through music. They're still doing it in movies, but with music, they just want to push agendas and have harmful sound frequencies and just nasty production methods and just make it all sound horrific and awful and traumatizing, which is how I find most popular music now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I can't really listen to anything mainstream at all, But then again, saying that, I've always been more underground in my approach anyway. And music was a big thing for me from a very young age, where we've discussed about this in the past, and the DJing came second for me. DJing was just only a way of really sharing the music collection of music that I built up over the years, really. So, that's how it's always been for me, really. It's just just to share your collection of music that you love for people out there, really. So, yeah, the DJing has always been secondary for me. It's not been like to be a DJ to look sort of in brackets cool, It's been the other way around. I just have a love of music. It's just been there from a very, very young age. Sure. And it's great to have you on here, because I know you're a music lover yourself, and it's just nice to be able to talk about these things, Mark. Very, very nice.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So the other thing I was going to actually ask you about was shadow work. Do you sort of or have any insights into that yourself? Shadow work at all?
Not in any kind of meaningful way that listeners would gain any value from. Really, what I've been forced to confront these past 2.5, 3 years, as we've all been through this collective trauma together, is a kind of dark night of the soul revisited.
Yeah.
So I went through my dark night of the soul the first time many, many years ago when I first came to a lot of the understandings that I now have when I got on the path to truth. And there were some difficult things to confront, that the world wasn't like I thought it was. These human lives aren't what I thought they were. I had to reevaluate my appreciation of all of that. But in more recent times, because the situation that we've all been through has been so difficult, it's forced me to kind of go back to that dark night of the soul and confront aspects of myself which are very dark and very ugly. And it's not a happy place to go to, but I've found myself having to go there. And I've had to address aspects of my psyche, my personality, take a long, hard look at aspects of myself, which quite frankly horrify me to know they're there. And that's been a very difficult process, and I've had to find coping mechanisms and ways to confront these as far as I've been able to try and put down some of these deep-rooted primal fears, which is what they really are, and to be able to move on and continue functioning. It's a very personal process. It is for each of us.
Yeah.
And the circumstances will be different for each of us. But in terms of shadow work, I would say that has been an aspect of it. And it's something that I've had to do a great deal of, quite reluctantly in many cases.
Yeah.
But it's all part of these human lives. It's all part of the experience.
Yeah.
It seems the human experience is supposed to have some suffering, some hardship, it's supposed to be counterbalanced with some joy and some happiness as well. It's supposed to be a rich kind of cocktail of experiences. And there's not been much joy and happiness and laughter these past 2.5, 3 years. There's needed to be more, because we're not supposed to just suffer in these lives. We're supposed to go through all these different emotional states.
Yeah.
So we do need to collectively get back to a bit more laughing and a bit more joy and fun, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, when you shared that, you know, that's thank you for sharing, you know, your heart and stuff, because, you know, this is stuff that is, you know, personal to me as well. You know, I mean, I don't share obviously my real personal things that go on within me. I do have certain friends that I can share that with, but yeah, I can very, very much relate to what you're talking about and what you're sharing. And so thank you for sharing that, and for, you know, for sharing that on here. You know, because again, you know, I just hope that whatever we bring here, someone will get something from it. One of our viewers will get something from it. That's what it's about, really. You know,
that's why we do it,
and this is why we do it. You know, so yeah, thank you. And yeah, I mean, to add on to that, I was going to say creativity is a very big part. Within that, I mean, that helps me a lot. You know, and creativity, wow, that's endless. You know, it comes in so many forms. But yeah, to just lose yourself in the moment, whatever that is within that, whether it's in poetry, painting a picture, you know, music making, you know, which is a new venture that I'm just starting on myself. So, you know, I've got a lot to learn there. But again, it's all these things. I think creativity is a big thing that can help, especially in times when, like you were saying, we end up in those times when things are not so great in our lives, you know. But it's all part of the process, you know. And to find that sort of balance, you know, again, duality, the balance, the in between, or non-duality within it, really. And but yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's just encouraging to hear you share that. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I like to step into the DJing a little bit still. I don't do much of it anymore, but I've really enjoyed the gigs that I've done this year, because when I was a full-time DJ, there was a lot of pressure there, because I earned my living from it. I was always trying to keep promoters happy and get rebooked. And you kind of feel that pressure. It's much better when you don't need to be doing it. So I don't need to DJ. I do it for fun, really, now.
Yeah.
Because I just enjoy playing tunes still. So I've done a few festivals this year, and they've been sort of early evening gigs, not late night ones, because I can't do late nights anymore. And they've been awake and aware, open-hearted crowds, and it's been great. It's been a great expression that way. So did you want to talk a bit about the Resonation Weekender, because there's going to be more of that?
Yeah, because that's how it started out, wasn't it, for us? Because I remember you last year you joined us on my friend's channel. Well, so channel, not his channel. He does internet radio, WTFR, which is our Joss.
Yeah.
And I remember you doing a couple of pre-recorded mixes for us, you know, and supporting us in that, which was very, very, you know, nice of you to do that. And you know, and then I think we talked and had a podcast, and I remember chatting about it and saying, you know, we'd love to put something on, you know, we'd love to put something out there. You know, it's nice to do it, you know, sort of as a radio thing, but to do something in the physical, because the reason why we called it Connection Festival is ultimately just to bring people together, to connect, you know, and that they get something out of it, whatever it may be for them for that day, that they come together. You know, I think connection is a very, very important thing within ourselves personally, and also with the people that we are with for the day.
You did one in August, right?
Yeah, we did the first one and stuff, and that was okay for the first one. You know, we did okay for the first one. You know, it was one of those ones where basically we broke even, you know, and stuff on it, and you know, people got what they got from it that day. And in the evening time, you know, we had a few people there that were having nice conversations with each other and stuff like that. You know, for my mum, it was great. She came along, my mum. And for her, she's stuck in a lot of the time. So for her to be there, and her eyes were lit up because she was actually out and meeting people there. That was the best part for me for the whole that festival. That meant a lot to me about my mum. You know, that really moved me in my heart. You know, to see her out of the house, because she's been stuck in the house for the last 2 or 3 years, and she's had problems with her, her mobility, and everything's gone downhill, and and she's having more and more medical problems and stuff and all of that. So it meant a lot to me that day, and it gives me always a reason for doing what I'm doing, Mark.
Yep.
So
you've invited me to be a part of the next one.
That's right.
Of November.
That's the one.
I'm going to be delivering a talk there, talking about the machinations of the music industry, which is my specialist subject, and also doing a DJ set early evening. So I think I'm going to drop some soulful, uplifting house and really try and raise those vibrations at that one. So Saturday, 19th of November, really looking forward to that. Just outside Chichester, right?
That's right. Yeah. A little place called Devln, which is about 2 miles up the road, in a little hall there. So yeah, it's quite nice. It's very nice how we have it set out there for the day. We've got a main room. We have a side room to it, which will have we're going to have like jewelry and people selling crystals, and there'll be like alternative health there as well for people to look into. We've got a chill out room as well, so people can go and, if they need to be, go and chill out for the, if they need to get away from the main hustle and bustle and stuff and all of that, so, and have sort of intimate chat there if needs to be as well. I've got a friend Chloe, she's going to come along and do a meditation group there as well in the daytime as well. So yeah, it should be a nice one. And I've got my friends from London coming down as well there. Jay Ryan is going to do an alkalinity diet, and Ahmed's going to be doing a hidden history talk as well. So it should make for a very good day, Mark, and we're glad to have you there.
Great. Yep, the world needs more events of this nature in these times.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for your contribution and your support. It means the world to us as well, Mark. So thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah. So on that note, is there sort of any more final words that you would like to share and stuff before we sort of bring this podcast to a close?
Well, in terms of meaningful words, there's a lot of doom and gloom being spread out there, obviously, a lot of fear. There's a lot of information which is putting people into a state of anxiety and stress. And this is exactly what the control system wants. They love people being held in those low vibrational states. And it can be very difficult to raise up out of those. But that's what guys like us are, all about in our work. And there's empowerment to be found from discovering the ways, the methods, the tactics that have been weaponized against us. But you've got to not just wallow in that. You've got to find ways of rising above it. And that's where true empowerment, true freedom lies. That's like the biggest secret that they're trying to keep from us. That's what we've tried to convey in this show today. That's what I've tried to convey in the final chapter of that book, Musical Truth Volume 3, where I've included all this sort of spiritual and esoteric information. So I would just encourage people to embrace that kind of information more so than the dark and devastating and doom-laden stuff, because energy goes where attention flows. And if you fixate on all that dark stuff, then you might be just helping it physically manifest. So that being said, I would just like to point people towards my hub website, which is djmarkdevlin.com. And from there, you get links through to all my podcasts, all my videos, the books, upcoming events. I've got talk events and a few DJ gigs coming up. So it's all there, djmarkdevlin.com. And thank you once again for getting me on the show today, brother, and big respect for all the great work that you do.
Thank you, Mark. And much love to you as well, brother. And hopefully we can maybe have one of these conversations again at some point in the future. And just on a note for our listeners and viewers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few links underneath as well for people to look at and stuff and that as well. So I shall make sure to include those underneath for our listeners in the description. So that's the other thing I would like to mention as well before we bring this podcast to an end. So once again, Mark, thank you. Really looking forward to seeing you on the 19th at the Connection Festival. And thank you for giving me your time. And, much love to you. And thank you.
Yep. Thanks, mate. See you in November.
All right. Much love. Bye.
I know the time will come when we welcome everyone. Yeah. Even the young and the old. We're here to soothe your soul.